Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." Welcome to Episode 4. Judges for Justice thanks you for taking the time to watch our documentary. Originally, Episode 4 was going to be about Patty Rorrer's trial. However, there's not much to say. In the 1998 capital murder trial, the only credible and unambiguous evidence against Patty Rorrer was the hair DNA evidence. We will discuss the hair evidence in detail in Episode 5. We believe that the hairs DNA tested by the FBI lab in 1997 are not authentic. That is, they are not the same hairs collected from Joann Katrinak's car seat in December of 1994. Further, the Rorrer trial was tainted because there was no evidence from an eyewitness named Walter Troutman. The Commonwealth, more specifically the Pennsylvania State Police, destroyed evidence from Walter Troutman and concealed his identity from the defense. It is police misconduct to destroy evidence and conceal the identity of a witness. It is up to you, the viewer, to decide whether or not this misconduct undermines your confidence in the Patty Rorrer verdict. This is an undated photo of Walter Troutman. He was born in April 1926. This is page 1 of a 2-page statement from Walter Troutman. He gave his statement to Joe Alertia of the American Detective Agency in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, on December 23, 2002. Traupman spent 2.5 years with the United States Navy in the Pacific Theater during World War II. After being discharged in 1946, Traupman joined the National Guard, reaching the rank of sergeant. His work history included positions where it was required that he be bonded. Bottom line, Traupman served his country. He was a solid citizen. This is page 2 of the 2-page Walter Troutman statement dated December 23, 2002. Traupman recounts what he saw in the early afternoon of December 15, 1994, the date of Joann and Alex Katrinak's disappearance. After seeing a man threaten a woman on Lloyd Street, Traupman was so concerned for the woman's safety that he telephoned the police. Later, after Traupman saw pictures of Andy Katrinak and Joann Katrinak in the newspaper, he said that they were the two people involved in the December 15, 1994 incident. Traupman told PSP lead investigator, Trooper Egan, that on the afternoon of December 15, 1994, he saw Andy Katrinak pounding on the windshield of Joann Katrinak's car and yelling, "What do you mean it's not my kid?" In this segment from the NBC Peacock show, Murder in Lehigh Valley, Keith Morrison Investigates, the prosecutor, Mike McIntyre, tells reporter Keith Morrison that he thought Walter Troutman was a nut.
I dismissed it immediately. I thought he was a nut just from reading, what they said about him.
What they said about him.
And what he said he saw. he saw a Spanish guy, but it was really Andy, but he had a beard and a fake mustache or something.
Look.
We think Traupman is far from being a nut. If Traupman is credible, and we think he is, Patty Rorrer is innocent. She could not have committed this crime. This is a November 27, 1995 statement of Trooper Robert V. Egan III. Trooper Egan is defending his conduct regarding an incident that happened on October 31st, 1995, between him and a man he calls Walter Troutman, white male, age 55. Trooper Egan misidentifies the man. He states his name as Trautman, like the fish. It is actually Traupman, Traupman. Troutman's age is really 69, not 55. Trooper Egan admits that he destroyed a letter that had been written to him by Walter Troutman. Egan states that the letter from Traupman had drawings of the man and woman he saw arguing on Lloyd Street the afternoon of December 15, 1994. Egan goes on to say that he destroyed the letter and drawings because they had, quote, no investigative value, end quote. This statement is beyond belief. Police officers collect evidence. They do not destroy it. In 1995, the Katrinak homicides were the highest profile case in Pennsylvania. It is hard to understand why the lead investigator would destroy evidence from a man who claimed he saw Joann Katrinak arguing with her husband on the afternoon of her disappearance. When you assess the credibility of a witness, one of the things to look for is corroboration. Is there other evidence that is consistent with and supports the witness's testimony? Judges for Justice believes that Walter Troutman was a credible witness. There is much corroboration of his testimony. According to Trooper Egan, Walter Troutman first appeared at the PSP Bethlehem station shortly after the bodies of Joann and Alex Katrinak were discovered. Traupman told Trooper Joseph Vasquez that on 12/15/94 he observed an Hispanic male on Lloyd Street having an argument with a woman who strongly resembled Joann Katrinak. The woman was sitting in a bronze Chevrolet Citation. A bronze Chevrolet Citation looks similar to Joann's tan Toyota Corolla. Traupman was interviewed by Trooper Egan. Traupman told Egan he had seen Andrew Katrinak on the news, and Andrew Katrinak was the male pounding on the woman's windshield, except that Katrinak was wearing a wig and mustache. This is an image of Andy Katrinak. It is possible that a stranger might think Andy to be Hispanic and wearing a wig. He certainly has a mustache.
I dismissed it immediately. I thought he was a nut just from reading, what they said about him.
What they said about him.
And what he said he saw. He saw a Spanish guy, but it was really Andy, but he had a beard and a fake mustache or something.
Look.
Prosecutor McIntyre is incorrect. Traupman neither reported that the man had a beard, nor did he say the man had a false mustache. This is a December 23, 2002 report from Walter Troutman. Troutman reports that the woman's car had a Pennsylvania plate and the last number on it was a 6. This is an image of the inventory of Joann's car. You can see that her car had a Pennsylvania license plate and the last number was a 6. One of the most corroborating parts of Troutman's statement is that he reported the incident to the police on the day it occurred, December 15, 1994, the same day that Joann and Alex Katrinak disappeared. Traupman was so concerned about the woman's safety that he called the police twice. First, he called the Allentown police when that was the wrong jurisdiction. He called a second time to the Pennsylvania State Police. More validation is that Traupman has been consistent in saying the woman's car had black flanges around the windows. Note that Joann's car did have black flanges around the windows. Also, note this image of a bronze Chevrolet Citation does not have black flanges around the windows. In Walter Troutman's report, he states that Joann Katrinak was wearing a black furry jacket. In this segment from Murder in Lehigh Valley, Keith Morrison Investigates, Prosecutor McIntyre defends Trooper Egan's conduct by claiming Troutman should be made fun of and didn't have a clue.
Yeah, apparently in this
And
case...
you're making fun of it.
Well, I am making fun of it because he is a witness that is to be made fun of. He just had no clue what he saw that day.
It is our understanding that McIntyre believes that Trautman didn't have a clue because he first reported the man was Hispanic, wearing a wig, and mustache. Also, he feels Trautman didn't know what he was talking about because Joann was found 4 months later with a tan leather jacket, not a black furry jacket. However, Trautman wasn't the only one who saw Joann Katrinak wearing a black jacket on the day she disappeared. We discussed eyewitness Stacy Fulper's witness statement in episode 2. Stacy saw Joann loading her car on December 15, 1994, about 12:35 p.m. Stacy reported that Joann was wearing a black jacket. We can be pretty sure that about 12:35 p.m. on December 15, 1994, Stacy actually saw Joann Katrinak, and she was wearing a black jacket. Walter Troutman saw a woman that he thought looked like Joann Katrinak wearing a black jacket. This is consistent with and supported by Stacy Fulper's observation. It is more corroboration that Trautman actually saw Joann Katrinak on December 15, 1994. More validation of Troutman's account is the location where he says he saw Andy Katrinak arguing with Joann Katrinak. Trautman was on Lloyd Street near Air Delivery Service. The address for Air Delivery Service was 241 Lloyd Street, Allentown, just south of the airport and about a block from an arterial named Airport Road. The importance of the Lloyd Street location is that it is within a block or two of the route Joann would have likely taken to pick up her mother-in-law, Veronica Katrinak. This is page 2 of Veronica Katrinak's statement. Veronica reported that Joann said she was leaving her house to pick up Veronica right away. Immediately after hanging up with Veronica, about 1:10 p.m., Joann would have put Alex's jacket on. She would have right away gotten into her car and left her house at 740 Front Street in Catasauqua, headed for Veronica's house at 807 Wild Street in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. This is a screenshot of the Google Map route Joann Katrinak would have likely taken from her house in Catasauqua to her mother-in-law Veronica Katrinak's house in Bethlehem. Notice if you follow the route, the blue line, at one point it goes west to east on US 22 before turning south onto Highway 378. This is a blow-up of the same Google map. Notice how the blue route turns right and south onto Highway 378. Note the location of the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. This is the same Google map route, blown up a bit more. See the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. To the west and left of it is Lloyd Street. We have marked the approximate location of 241 Lloyd Street. 241 Lloyd Street is the address of Air Delivery Service in December 1994. Because this location is within a couple of blocks of the route Joann would have likely taken, we think it confirms that Walter Troutman actually saw Andy and Joann Katrinak arguing on December 15, 1994. If Walter Troutman actually saw Andy and Joann arguing on Lloyd Street, that means Joann was not kidnapped by Patty Rorrer from her residence. There is little chance that Patty Rorrer drove over 500 miles from North Carolina to Pennsylvania to kill a woman she didn't know and then somehow intercept Joann as she drove around the Allentown area. Egan claims the letter was destroyed because it was of, quote, no investigative value, end quote. We believe the truth to be that all of Traupman's various reports had a lot of corroborating information in them, like the woman's car had a Pennsylvania license plate ending in 6. Judges for Justice believes that the Traupman reports have been destroyed, not because he didn't have a clue, but because it was strong evidence that he, indeed, did see Andy and Joann arguing on Lloyd Street. Walter Troutman's reports put Trooper Robert Egan in a bind. If he told the prosecutor might not charge Patty Rorrer. If he told the defense, a jury might believe Walter Troutman and acquit Patty Rorrer. If he destroyed the reports, he would risk looking like a police officer with bad judgment. He was willing to take that risk because his tunnel vision told him that Traupman could not possibly have seen Andy and Joann Katrinak. He rejected Trautman's evidence, even though it was probative, because it was inconsistent with his bias, his confirmation bias. They reject evidence, no matter how probative, that is inconsistent with their bias. Here again is Trooper Egan's November 27, 1995 statement about his encounter with Walter Troutman on October 31, 1995. Here is Walter Troutman's statement of December 23, 2002, 7 years after Egan's statement. Troutman says toward the bottom that Egan's statement was full of lies. When the viewer has time, we would invite you to read both of these statements. Go over them in detail. Did Trautman stand up and scream at Egan? Or was it Egan who was yelling at Trautman? Human beings know the truth when they hear it. We say to ourselves, it has the ring of truth. The statements are almost polar opposites. One of them has to be lying. Which statement has the ring of truth? Over the last 11 years, Judges for Justice has taken a deep dive into 4 wrongful convictions. In each case, we see that behind the scenes is an alpha dog type detective who bends the rules to get a conviction. They have an attitude of, the end justifies the means. Tunnel vision confirmation bias has what the Canada report calls a perverse byproduct. Perverse byproduct, that's not good. So they call this perverse byproduct noble cause corruption. Police and prosecutors are on a noble cause. Get this deviant killer locked up and make our community safe. This corruption, the corruption can best be described, it's not bribery, it's an attitude of the end justifies the means. It's an attitude of we know this SOB is guilty, we're going to do whatever we have to do to get him locked up. In this segment from NBC Peacock, Murder in Lehigh Valley, Keith Morrison Investigates, Prosecutor McIntyre is saying that he dismissed Traupman as a nut immediately. He thought he was a nut because of what, quote, what they said about him, end quote.
I dismissed it immediately. I thought he was a nut just from reading, what they said about him.
What they said about him.
We think they include at least Trooper Vasquez and Trooper Egan. We believe that Egan is referencing Vasquez because the two of them have been talking about Walter Troutman, and Egan believes that Vasquez will back him up. In talking about Walter Troutman, we believe Egan and Vasquez decided to cherry-pick those statements that made Walter Troutman look like a nut. So, they only mention that Traupman said the male was Hispanic and was wearing a wig and a mustache, and the woman was driving a bronze Chevrolet Citation. In our opinion, to make sure people would conclude that Traupman was a nut, they left out corroborating information, like the woman's car had a Pennsylvania license plate that ended in a 6. In our opinion, they destroyed the letter from Traupman and up to 15 reports because they contained information that corroborated Trautman's account. It worked. Prosecutor Mike McIntyre thought Trautman was a nut.
I dismissed it immediately. I thought he was a nut.
Frederick Douglass was an escaped slave who was a powerful figure in the abolitionist movement. Abraham Lincoln listened to him. Douglass said, "I expose slavery because to expose it is to kill it. Slavery is one of those monsters of darkness to whom the light of truth is death." A wrongful conviction is also a monster of darkness. And like Frederick Douglass, we agree we have to expose the wrongful conviction to kill it. That is why we are making this film, Is Patty Rorrer Innocent? If people in the Lehigh Valley watch our film, we hope they will see what we see, that Patty Rorrer is innocent. She's a good person who was wrongfully convicted. Here is part of our outreach to get people to watch our documentary. On January 12, 2024, from the Seattle and Tacoma, Washington post offices, over 56,000 of these postcards were sent to frequent voter households in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. On February 5, 2024, this envelope was picked up from our Judges for Justice post office box. The envelope is postmarked from Lehigh Valley, PA, on 30 January 2024. There was no return address. Inside the envelope was one of our postcards folded up. The address information was cut out. Also inside the envelope was this sticky note. It says, "Stay on the West Coast and go F yourself." Of course she's guilty. And how dare you stir all these emotions back again? Isn't your own state a total mess? Question mark, exclamation point. F off, exclamation point. Normally, we would ignore this. But because we believe it was written by a police officer involved with Patty Rorrer's prosecution, we are going to discuss it. An excellent resource about the Katrinak murders and the prosecution of Patty Rorrer is the book Convenient Suspect by author Tammy Mal. In 2012, while doing background work for her book, Tammy Mal received a phone call from a PSP trooper who had been involved in the prosecution of Patty Rorrer. The former trooper stated, "What do you want to go digging into this case for anyway? Nobody wants this case brought back up." A bit later, the former trooper firmly said, "Look, nobody wants you looking into this case, and nobody is going to cooperate with you. No one wants this case brought back up. The family just wants to be left alone." We felt these sentiments expressed by the former trooper in 2012 appear to be similar to the feelings in the anonymous note of January 2024. The note states, "How dare you stir all these emotions back again?" Because of the similarities, we tried to find a sample of the former trooper's handwriting. We found a writing by the former trooper. It is this April 18, 1995 FBI evidence receipt form which was filled out by him. We have blocked out his name and signature to protect his identity. This trooper was actively involved in the Katrinak murder investigation and the prosecution of Patty Rorrer. He testified at trial. Note how the trooper wrote the word "from." He writes it with a lowercase f, uppercase R, a lowercase o, and a lowercase m. On this envelope, the word "for" is spelled with a lowercase f, a lowercase o, and an uppercase R, very similar to the word "from" in the 1995 form. Also note that the lowercase letter F in the 1995 form and on the 2024 envelope appear similar, as do the uppercase R's. We have consulted a forensic document examiner. The handwriting expert concluded that the trooper cannot be excluded as the writer of this note. If it becomes necessary, we can conclusively prove or disprove our analysis by comparing the DNA from the licking of the envelope with the former trooper's DNA. But for the moment, because we are not 100% sure, we do not identify the former trooper by name. Bottom line, we believe this note was written by the former trooper. This is the top half of page 1 of an appellate decision from the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. The same trooper we suspect of writing the note to us exhibited concerning conduct in 2003. We have redacted his name to protect his identity. The court notes, in January 2003, while on his lunch break at the State Police Barracks, the trooper placed a custodial worker in a headlock and pointed his loaded service weapon at the worker's head.
crowd of about 70 onlookers yelled and taunted Rorrer.
At this moment, in the eyes of the Lehigh Valley, Trooper Egan is a hero. No one knows that he has destroyed evidence and hidden the existence of eyewitness Walter Troutman. On October 31st, 1995, Walter Troutman appeared at the police barracks. Trooper Egan admits he took Traupman by the arm and shirt and escorted him outside the building. Walter Troutman's recollection is different. He says that Trooper Egan yelled at him, spun him around, slammed his hands into the middle of Trautman's back, and violently pushed him outside the building. Whichever side you believe, the ejecting of an eyewitness Walter Troutman from the police barracks appears to be an act of noble cause corruption. Another act of noble cause corruption is the misidentification of Walter Troutman by calling him Trautman. We believe Egan is misnaming Trautman to keep his identity hidden. In addition to misnaming him, another act of noble cause corruption and omission is the lack of any identifying information. Typically, police officers note identifying information like date of birth, address, telephone number, social security number. All were absent from this statement. Trooper Egan states that Walter Troutman had appeared at PSP Bethlehem approximately 15 times. If so, there should have been approximately 15 reports regarding Walter Troutman, each with his name spelled correctly and with his identifying information. Each destruction of a Walter Troutman witness report is another act of noble cause corruption. Trooper Egan admits he destroyed a letter from Walter Troutman. This is another act of noble cause corruption. Trooper Egan may have also committed a crime. The Pennsylvania Criminal Code states that a person commits a misdemeanor if, believing an official proceeding or investigation is pending, he destroys a document with the intent to impair its availability in such proceeding or investigation. It looks like Trooper Robert Egan committed a crime, destroyed a letter from Traupman, destroyed up to 15 witness reports, and concealed the identity of Walter Troutman, all acts of noble cause corruption. He appears to be an end justifies the means type of person. He's going to do what he has to do to get Patty Rorrer locked up. This ends episode 4. In episode 5, we will look at the only real evidence against Patty Rorrer. That is, crime scene hairs were a perfect match to her DNA.